Hello and welcome to the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token podcast. This is episode 120. My name is Chris.
My name is David.
And we're just having a twosome today, David.
Yeah, once again.
It's just me and you. Stalwarts. Yeah. We're the regulars on the show these days.
It's becoming that way.
Ewan just makes rare appearances these days, I think. But
I know. You
know, he just turns up for board game chat and then goes, bye. But we have a slightly ridiculous episode today, I think. There's a couple of silly things that we're going to talk about here. The first one, because this is video games this week. Yes. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but this is video games. And the very first one is something that I introduced you to, Dave, after I saw somebody streaming it. And it's like I watched it for about 30 seconds and went, I'm buying this game. This game is insane and I want it.
Yeah. And we were playing board games, so I was over at yours, and then just while I was waiting for the bus, Chris showed me like 5 minutes of Cooking Simulator, and then I went home and bought
it. you can't watch this game. I mean, we're like big fans of like Overcooked and stuff like that. Like Overcooked is a just fantastic multiplayer cooking game. It's absolutely stupid. And Cooking Simulator just seems to have taken it a wee bit further and just made it realistic. Try to make it realistic, but I mean, the more realistic you make games with these simulator games, the more stupid they are.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got here, Cooking Simulator.
It is completely dumb. But, like, yeah, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I have to own this game. And it's a sort of physics-based, a little bit. Or that's what I read, but that doesn't really describe it adequately. It
doesn't describe it at all.
It has a physics system in it, but that's just part of it. So that, like, you know, when you drop things, they bump off each other and all the rest of it. But it's played in first person perspective in a sort of 3D kitchen that you are trapped in that you could never leave. As it says on the door.
Yeah, the post-it note says so.
And you're ostensibly running a restaurant. It's a very quiet restaurant, fortunately, because making dishes is freaking difficult. You know, but you're just on your own, I suppose. And you only get a limited amount of prep time in the morning to get ready for making these dishes. But yeah, you've got your basic stuff to begin with. You've got your cooker and your chopping board and knives and spatulas. Actually, there's no spatula. There's a sort of fish slice. You've got pots and pans. Some of these things you have to buy for yourself from a mysterious box. And then they just appear in your hands, and then you have to try and find somewhere to place them. Or finding space for things is always an issue.
Sorry. I'm going to have to interrupt you there. You don't place things in this game. You throw them.
Sometimes it is easier to throw them. Like, particularly, I'm playing with the gamepad. There's like little hooks on the wall for organising your utensils.
Yeah,
but trying to hang a fish slice on or whatever on the little hook is just an exercise in frustration with the gamepad. And like, I usually try it for a few seconds and then just throw it onto the counter in disgust.
What made you decide to play this game with a gamepad?
I don't know. It said it had partial gamepad support, and I was like, good. Oh, right. Well, you know what it is. It's because it's so I can play it in bed. That's why.
That's a good shout, actually.
Yeah, because
although I don't know if I could play this in bed. That'd be a stressful thing to play before going to sleep.
Yeah, because it is. Yeah, I mean, it's just difficult. Like, the orders come in like any other cooking game, and you've got to make the various dishes, but it goes into a bit more depth than some of the other games that you might have played, the other cooking simulators. There's that VR one that I can't remember the name of now. What was that called?
What, Job Simulator?
Yeah, part of Job Simulator. There's one where you can cook things, sort of, in that. Yeah. But it has some similarities with that. But this one, whilst you have to chop things and like mix things and put in and have particular weights, this is a big issue. Like, you're making soup, and it's like, put in 800 grams of tomatoes. And you're like, well, who does, like, there's no scales because every tomato weighs the same in this game.
Yeah, in this universe, or the cooking simulator universe, vegetables weigh the same.
So, but even though every vegetable weighs the same, it doesn't tell you to use like 5 tomatoes or 6, which is, I think it is 6. No, you have to go and like grab them from the punnets over in your restore area, and it'll be like, oh, a tomato weighs 150 grams. And you're like, all right, now I have to do some division in order to figure out how many tomatoes I need to put into this pot. I mean, fortunately, you can take them out again if you put too many, and it does show you the weight of everything that's in it. It's a miraculous ability that you have as a chef. You can see down to micrograms almost.
Yes, definitely.
You can like, oh, there's traces of salt in this pot that shouldn't be in there. I don't know how they got in there.
How many times have you tipped a pot upside down and just been like, why is there still stuff in this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got herbs and spices, the salt and the dried herbs, which you have to shake onto things. You're like seasoning a fish in order to put it in the oven. And it's like you're grilling is it sardines is one of the very early ones? Or is it a trout? No, it's a trout.
It's trout, yeah, baked trout.
And it needs like 6 grams of pepper, 6 grams of dill, and 6 grams of thyme, and you've got to like grab these things with the mouse or the gamepad, and then you press the right button and it turns it over, and then you've got to tap. Well, you can hold it down and it just shakes it, or you can tap it, and you've got to try and put exactly 6 grams, because if you put too much, then the customers complain about it because they've got very they're not too bad. The game does give you a bit of leeway with certain things. You don't have to be to the gram. For example, when you're pouring out portions of soup, for some reason you can't use a ladle in this game.
No, you have to actually pour it.
Yeah, you pour it from a massive pot into the bowl, and it's one of the most difficult things you have to do in this game.
I was getting very good at it.
Oh, it's just ridiculous. It's like, oh, this game's realistic, but you don't have a ladle. You pour out of like huge soup pots into bowls, and then it overflows. It goes all over the table, and you're like, oh, I put too much in it. Maybe I'll try and pour a bit out, and then it all just then it all goes back into the pot, and then and then you've got to turn things in the pan. That's a laugh. You're like turning salmon steak, and it like land. You're like, I'm flipping it. I've done it for a minute. You can time it using the timers that they give you, which don't ever stop. Once they go off, you have to reset them yourself. They never stop. But you can just use your magical cook vision to look at it and tell when it's ready, which I guess is kind of like real life.
Yeah.
Which is what I tend to do, because with the gamepad, trying to manipulate the timers is just a ball ache.
Have you found that some of the times that the recipe gives, because the recipes go into so much depth, like the recipes, they tell you exactly everything that you need to do. It's like reading a recipe out of a book, which presumably, like a chef in a kitchen, which
it sort of
is. Yeah, it sort of is. But you know what I mean. It's then it tells you like, cook this for 90 seconds or something. But then you cook it for 90 seconds and it's not cooked properly.
Yes,
you run into that problem.
Yeah, especially with the soups, the things that have like multiple ingredients in them.
Oh yeah, the onion starts to burn very quickly.
Yeah, and I'm like, what does this mean? Should I be adding the onion later?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well.
But then you try doing stuff like that. It is fun to try these things, and then it just doesn't work the way you think it should. Yep. Like I was so disappointed that like if you put too much salt into a pot of water, you can't just add more water to it.
Ah, yeah, I know.
That really annoyed me, because I like figured it out, because it tells you to the gram, and I was like, okay, well, if I put 200 mils more water into this, it will be the correct concentration of salt, and I'm just boiling potatoes. That's all I'm doing with this.
No, but the game wants you to be very accurate.
Yeah, and then the game's like, no, you've got too much salt in this. Yeah, it's... I don't know what's going on with... There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense. It is pretty buggy. Things break. I mean, I spoke to Chris earlier about getting a tray jammed in the oven. I mean, just trying to put the trays in the oven can be a task sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And because of the physics-based thing, the amount of stuff that just falls on the floor A lot of food in this restaurant, if you ever come to this restaurant, has been on the floor.
I think most of my food ends up on the floor at some point in this game.
Because if you turn too quickly or bump up against something, the stuff that you've got plated that you're taking over to the past to go out can easily just fall off. And then you're down on your hands and the knees, like picking up chunks of potato off the floor to putting them back into the...
I have to say, speaking of potatoes, I do really like, when you have to make roasted potatoes, basically, and you put them in the oven, the texture on them when they come out, it looks delicious.
Yeah, they do look good. I've not burnt them yet. I'm tempted to try. Because you can do... Yeah, because you can do other stuff. You can deliberately break things in this, and I haven't experimented enough with that because I haven't got the blender working yet. So I haven't attempted to see what I can put into the blender.
Yeah, I've not tried that yet either. In fact, I only realised it existed the last time I played it. But I mean, the game's stupid, Dave. Let's be honest. I mean, it's another simulator game. I mean, it's not as stupid as Goat Simulator, but it is a silly game. Because you can do stupid stuff in it. I mean, you can throw your utensils out the window.
Yeah.
If you really want to. You're going to have to go and buy more to get them back, but you can just throw stuff out the window. Like, you can smash the windows. The other thing, there's like canisters of gas all over the kitchen.
Yeah,
and you can pick them up.
Why are they even in there?
Yeah, no, there's loads of them. And you can pick them up, and guess what? You can put them on top of the cooker, and guess what? They explode, and then wreck everything. But there's just like, they take the realism just to a silly extent sometimes. Well, how many times have you walked into a wall holding a plate?
Yeah.
And the plate just goes bang and just smashes everywhere, and then you've just got like a kitchen covered in broken plates after a while.
Yeah.
And you've not got the time to clean that shit up during the day.
Well, that's the fun. I mean, that when you try and play the game properly, that is the fun of it. It is engineered to be so that things will go wrong, and like you've got everything ready for a dish to go out, and then it all like ends in catastrophe, and then you're desperately trying to recover and put something out. Yeah. Because if you don't, you lose. You can lose a star for your restaurant.
Oh yeah, you don't want that.
No, they're not Michelin stars, but whatever they are, it gives you an actual trophy, doesn't it? When you get a star to put in the blender.
I threw those out the window, Dave.
Yeah.
They were in the way. It's just like, I don't want this.
I know. I was like, what are you going to do with it? It doesn't do anything. It's like I was going to put it above the cooker, but that's where I keep the sardine that I dropped on the floor in day one. And I'm just leave it out as an experiment to see if anything ever happens to it.
I've still got half a pumpkin lying from the beginning of the game, because when you have to make pumpkin soup, you have to just cut a bit of a pumpkin off. Because it's only wanting, like, I can't even remember, is it 800 grams of pumpkin or something like that? But the pumpkins are like 3 kilos. So you have to slice a bit off, and then I spent so long the first time I made pumpkin soup just cutting little bits off the pumpkin until I got exactly the amount that I needed. But I spent too long doing it.
Yeah. The chopping
and you realise
stuff.
that, like,
yeah, the chopping stuff is really satisfying though. I really like that part of the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
When you do like a perfect lemon.
Oh yeah, the perfect for that. What's the fish dish? I can't remember which one it is.
At the start,
is it the trout?
The trout, yeah.
Yeah, you got to get that lemon quartered. Beautiful stuff. I mean, there are certain things that you can do in the game as well. Like you can, you've got skill points and stuff you can spend, and they do things like giving you slightly more time for each dish, or giving you more money for every dish you do, or in fact, there are perks as well, and one of the perks, this is why I started talking about, is that you can slow down time while you're chopping things. So that you get a little bit more time to prep things, basically. And one of the other things is you can stop, because it's like, it's a physics-based game, you can stop when you slice something in half, for example, you can stop the bits from falling to either side. They just stay rigid where they are, so you can keep chopping that vegetable or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So there are little perk things that are unrealistic, but do help. Well,
the one that holds things in place is relatively... That's not too bad. No. Because that's like having 2 hands.
No. The lore in this game is that you only have 1 hand. That's the lore, okay? You're playing a character with 1 hand. Everybody knows this.
Yeah, I took the time slowing one for the chopping, but then I realised it kind of messes up with... Because time slows down, I don't like, it messes up with my timings for the dishes that are on the stove. Because I'm not using the timers. I do sort of count for some of them in my head, but you can't do that when you use the slow down time thing.
See, that's a good point, because I was thinking I could maybe just use the timer on my phone for some of these things instead of play with the timers in the game, which are just ridiculously annoying when they go off, because you have to turn them off manually. But obviously, yeah, that wouldn't work, would it?
At least I don't think so. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun just panicking and serving anything. That was the best thing I ever had to do when I had to serve the duck in broth thing. And I tipped.
That's a stupid dish.
I was trying to pour it out and basically lost the entire, like, all the broth for it just went on the floor. So I had none. So I still had the bits of duck and some vegetables. I was like, I just had to desperately, like, concoct something that was vaguely like duck and broth and send it out. Because if you don't send anything, like, that's really bad. They've kind of done it that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's
what
hilarious.
Did you serve? A fish and pumpkin soup?
No, there was like bits of duck, and I think it was basically water with some flavouring that I quickly heated up in the stove.
Just chuck a stock cube in it, it'll be fine. Well, I think there's one thing I will say about this game is that it's crying out for multiplayer.
Oh man, it would be amazing.
This would be like Game of the Year if this was multiplayer. It would just overtake Overcooked for me.
Yeah, because you'd be bumping into each other.
Oh yeah, you'd just be totally getting in each other's way. But you would actually try and organise it like a kitchen as well. You would be on your different stations and stuff like that. It would be great fun.
Yeah, like throw me a pumpkin.
Exactly. I think we've got an episode title, Dave.
No, it's a lot of fun, and although it's silly, it's fun to try and play it. Or at least I've not played it that much, but I had a lot of fun trying to play it like properly. Because even when you try and play it properly, it's still silly because things
you can't play it properly.
Just go to shit so easily. And like my girlfriend was watching me, and she was just getting incredibly stressed as I'm like running around and like dropping stuff on the floor and then failing to pick it up and then dropping it again. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, this isn't easy. This is harder than it looks.
Oh, fantastic.
And then I tried to put the gas canister in the oven. But, yeah, broke the doors off.
Oh, yep. Stupid game, but one of the best games I've played in a while.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Just so much fun. Love it. So that's Cooking Simulator. That is by Big Cheese Studios. I think that is only on Windows at the moment. You can get it on Steam. I think this is probably... I mean, if they've got gamepad support, I would imagine that they would at least try and port it, because it's been very popular, I think. So we can expect to see more from it.
I think, yes. I mean, it's got a lot of potential. It isn't even finished, I would say, as a game.
No.
I think because it's a little bit buggy at the moment, they're primarily focusing on trying to fix the many bugs in the game before they add all the other things. Like, people are like, why doesn't this have VR support? They're like, well, that would be good, but maybe we'll make it work properly with just regular before we worry about VR. So
probably a fair point.
It's got a lot of potential. Hopefully we'll see more from it.
I'm really fingers crossed for that multiplayer. Like,
yeah.
Right, let's move on. I've been playing a few things actually the past sort of couple of weeks since our last video games episode. I've gone back and played like a couple of older games that I have talked about in the podcast, but it's been a while. The first one, Planet Coaster. The reason I went back and played this is because they announced Planet Zoo, which I am quite excited about. Yeah,
I saw that. Is that basically make a zoo instead of a
It's
theme
basically
park?
make a zoo instead of a theme park. I mean, Planet Coaster's a great game. I've never gone too far with Planet Coaster. I like doing, like, I tend not to play sandbox modes when I play these games, even though you almost feel like that's what they're made for. But I do quite like the challenge of like having a park and a limited amount of money and that kind of thing, and that's how I play this game. So I went back and played Planet Coaster and hit all the same problems that I hit the last time I played it, which is that I just keep making roller coasters that are like too vomit-inducing, not exciting enough. You know, that kind of thing. But then I did accidentally make the pretty much perfect roller coaster, and it doesn't look great. I look at this roller coaster and say, nah, the other ones I made look way better than this, but this is the one that's got really good ratings and stuff. So it was one of those little spinny, you know, the ones where you sit in a little cart and it spins as it goes round the track.
Yeah, kind of like a teacup ride, sort of, but
yeah,
more
but except that you're on a
roller-coastery.
roller coaster. Yeah. I made one of those, and it was like the perfect ride, and it's made me so much money. But I mean, I've been playing a lot of that the past couple of weeks, and just having a lot of fun with it. It's a good game just to chill out, and it's a game where you lose track of time while you're playing it. So yeah, I've put a few hours into it, but I'm quite happy with the little park I'm making. The one complaint I do have about Planet Coaster though is that it really focuses a lot on the design, the aesthetics of your park, basically. So, like, you really have to put a lot of effort into making things look good, because if you don't, then the visitors get really unhappy. And the thing is, you could just plonk stuff in anywhere. It doesn't matter what you do. You could just, like, throw a bunch of walls in somewhere and put loads of trees up around next to a shop, and then people will go, oh, that shop looks amazing. It's like, no, it doesn't. It looks shit. Like,
Yeah.
It's just because you've added something to it, people like it more. It's kind of strange.
Oh, maybe maybe one day we'll have games that use sort of like deep learning and AI to do kind of like human type judgment of the aesthetics of things.
Yeah, I mean, that's something to be afraid of, I think.
That'd be amazing though. Like when you're playing like RimWorld or something, it would like look at the rooms and go, yeah, that's a nice looking room. I can see you put a lot of effort into that.
Yeah, I see what you were trying to do here. So I'm wondering if Planet Zoo is going to go down that same route as well, because if it does, it's the one sort of off-putting thing for me for Planet Coaster. Not that it would stop me from playing the game, because it's a great game. It's one of the best like theme park design games I've ever played. But I mean, if they go down that same route with Planet Zoo, which they probably will, I can see me getting maybe a wee bit tired of it. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what it brings. I'm still excited about it. I'm still going to pick it up and see what that's like in the future. And I think that's coming out later this year. 5th of November. That's due to come out, Planet Zoo. So, excited.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've been playing on a completely different note is that I went back and played Ghost Recon Wildlands. The reason for that is that they announced Breakpoint, which is going to be the next Ghost Recon game. And I thought, well, I'll go back into Ghost Recon because there's new missions in it. That, well, I say new missions, they've been around for a wee while, it's just that I hadn't played them. They'd added into the game. One of which is that you have to actually kill the Predator.
All right.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. In this game that's set in a sort of kind of realistic sort of Bolivian setting.
That's what I was going to say. Is it because it's jungle based?
Yeah, so you go into one of the regions of the game that's entirely jungle, and you find a girl crying and saying that, you know, it killed everybody, and off you go and you fight the Predator, and it's easily the hardest fight in Ghost Recon I've ever had. It was so difficult. We died so many times. We've been playing this with a couple of mates, but eventually we got him.
Well done.
And there was another mission that was entirely stealth based. That was a bit annoying because it was one of these missions where be ultra quiet, don't get spotted. You have to get into the middle of this massive base and find this guy, and as soon as you do find the guy, all the guys that you were sneaking past earlier suddenly all just start attacking you anyway. And you're just kind of like, why? Why have you done this?
Yeah.
I could have just killed all these people on the way in.
I hate that in stealth games. That's like The Last of Us had a really annoying stealth mechanic that, so obviously best game ever made, etc. But yeah, it used to wind me up that like the magic powers that they had of like things like, and like it was the thing in The Last of Us was I like to play stealth games where you sneak past and take out as many people as you can until you get caught, and then you fight the rest of them. And so it's one smooth not like going back and starting it again if you get caught. But The Last of Us did this really annoying thing where it would send in reinforcements as soon as you were spotted. It would just send in extra guys and basically top up the number of guys to the cap anyway. So it was all the guys that you'd taken out stealthily. It was a complete waste of time. You had to do it one way or the other.
Ghost Recon kind of does that as well. I mean, you can go into a base full of people and you can go around and stealth kill a whole bunch of guys. If at some point you do get spotted, it's then up to you. Like it's almost like you've got a certain amount of time before they'll call in reinforcements.
Yeah.
So you pretty much have to clear the place out. You've maybe got about 30 seconds or something to do that before they'll start calling in reinforcements. So there's a little bit of a balance there. So if you can take out a whole bunch of guys and leave 4 or 5 guys left standing, you can probably take those 4 or 5 guys out before they call in reinforcements.
Oh, that's not so bad.
The other thing that I've done with Ghost Recon is that we started playing the Ghost mode, which wasn't available the last time we played. And Ghost mode is an ultra difficult Iron Man mode, where if you die, it's game over and the game deletes your save. But they try to make it, they claim it's more realistic. So they've made it so that friendly fire is on. That was never a thing in the original version. And yeah, it becomes a completely different game almost for us, because we would mess about a lot in that game. This game's it's one of these things. There's almost a Grand Theft Auto thing about it. It's that kind of massive open world, and you can go and just nick people's cars and drive around, steal helicopters, that kind of thing. Except that you're supposed to be a soldier, but you can mess about.
Yeah.
And we often did, strapping C4 to each other's cars and things before you would drive away. And you can't do that in the Ghost mode because it's just death means death. So
yeah.
we had such a problem trying to reel ourselves in a little bit. But we've played for ages where we're avoiding doing the sort of main missions. We were just running around picking up all the skill points that you can get, trying to get resources to level our characters up. I'd got my character up to level 27. We decided to go and try and get these. There was 5 skill points in a little base thing somewhere. Off we went. We were getting cocky. Instead of doing the thing that we should have been doing, which was just stealthing in, grabbing the skill points, getting the hell back out of there again, we just started shooting people. That worked out so badly, all of us went down, all our saves were deleted, and we've put about, 16 hours into it or something like that. We'd been playing just nearly every night for, a week, and it was just gutted. I mean, we were all just in a bad mood after that.
Oh, no. Can you still revive people in it?
You can revive people, yes.
Yeah,
and one of the things that we focused on was getting the medic drone.
Right.
That was our main focus, because that makes the game so much easier. The problem was that in this base, because I was the last one to go down, I put my medic drone up to try and heal my 2 mates. And it was jammed. There are jammers in this game that jam the drones. And at that point, there was nothing I could do. I was just surrounded. I tried to make a run for it and tried to leave them behind. But no, I got gunned down. So yeah, if you haven't played Ghost Recon for a while, Ghost Mode is there if you want to go and have a go at it. If you're a glutton for punishment, go and have a go, because it is extremely difficult and can be extremely frustrating. And you can't mess about.
Yeah, good for streaming. Good entertainment for people watching to see if you're gonna die. If you're gonna make it or not.
Anyway, the game that put a little bit of time into today. I spent an afternoon today, and I played a little bit last night as well. Actually, mostly I just played the tutorial last night, but I played a game called Rise of Industry. Dave, do you remember Transport Tycoon?
I do.
Did you play it?
A little bit.
What did you think of it? Or the Railroad Tycoon games or anything like that?
Yeah, I can't remember which one I played. I liked making railways.
Yeah.
I didn't like the game, but I liked just making train sets with this and trying to use the signalling system.
Yeah, that was always fun.
I hated all the having to make money and stuff because it didn't work very well. I didn't care for it very much.
Right, well, Rise of Industry is basically I would call it a spiritual successor to Transport Tycoon. Obviously, there was a whole bunch of these kind of tycoon sort of logistics style games where you're moving goods from one place to another, or people or something. But Transport Tycoon was one that I spent a lot of time playing, and it came out in 1994. It was one of the sort of first PC games I think I ever played back in the days. Back in the days of like Descent.
God.
And the original Doom and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Duke Nukem.
God,
Transport Tycoon was the simulation game I played.
Yeah, I hated Descent. Just add that in there. All my friends because I used to play it with my friends. I was at university, and we used to play in the university network, and they were all just really good at it. And I was hopeless. Oh, yeah. And so it was a really unpleasant experience as I just flew into corners and died.
My brother was very good at it as well. I wasn't very good at it, but I liked the game. But my brother was very good at it. But anyway, yeah, back to Rise of the Industry. So there was something about Transport Tycoon that that I really enjoy. Now, in Transport Tycoon, in the original game, you had a sort of isometric map, and it was always randomly generated, and it was just some like little towns dotted about. And I think generally you would start in the early 20th century or something like that. It was the same in these Railroad Tycoon games. And there would be like factories or mines or farms or things dotted about the map, and it was generally up to you to then start a little business, start a little transport company, and get things from one industry or from one town, or people or mail or whatever, to another industry or another town, the things that needed them. And one of the things about that, while that was enjoyable, and like you say, it was quite fun. Like Transport Tycoon was more limited than Railroad Tycoon in this sense, but it was quite fun just building up the little travel routes, playing with the sort of railway signalling systems and that kind of thing. I spent a long time doing that. But there was one thing that was missing from Transport Tycoon that I always wanted to see, and that was the ability to sort of create your own factories and have things moving about in a way that you wanted to, rather than just the way that the map had generated them. There was kind of a little thing in Transport Tycoon where you could fund an industry, but it cost a lot of money, and it was almost like something that you just didn't do very often. Rise of the Industry kind of flips this on its head a little bit, where the idea is that you build the factories and stuff yourself, and then you connect everything up. So you'll start off with like a map. Now, I created a small map just for my first game. I didn't want to create a huge sprawling map. It only had 2 towns in it, and there's nothing else there. It's just a couple of towns, and the towns are stagnant. Their growth rate is stagnant. And what each town has is that generally they'll have something like a farmer's market and a hardware store, and they demand certain goods. And it's up to you really to then, if you want to try and get these towns to prosper, to provide these goods to these stores, because it's providing these goods that will cause the town to actually grow. Yeah, the way that it works is that you will build these little gatherer buildings. That's an in-game term that they use, gatherer buildings, which is a strange term, but also it's very descriptive. And what you actually do is, if you want to get a resource, and actually water is one of the most important resources in this game, you will build a little gatherer building near a bit of water, and you can then put harvester buildings in. So each gatherer building will have an associated harvester building. So you need to have put the gatherer building in first, and then you can build, at the start of the game, it's 3 harvester buildings per gatherer building. So if you put in if you want to gather some water, you'll put in the water building, and then you'll put water pumps next to the water, and they'll start pumping water out. And that water will then just start getting stored. One of the things that you want to do then is to build warehouses. So you want to build a warehouse, and that will as soon as you start building these things, these little trucks just start appearing. You don't have to create trucks or anything like you did in Transport Tycoon, like you did in Railroad Tycoon. You don't have to actually create the vehicles themselves.
Right.
They just automatically appear on the map whenever something's needed done. You do get charged for it though. So every time a truck makes a journey, there's a small cost associated with it, like a shipping fee almost. So your water will get transported to a warehouse, and then from there, that warehouse is then like a central hub that will then, trucks will start pushing the water out to anything else wherever it's needed. So what I did was I started building up a little farming empire. I made a little crop farm somewhere, started growing apples, because the farmer's market was demanding apples, so I'll start growing apples then. So yeah, your farmer's market and your hardware store, they're demanding certain goods. And the game is like way in depth compared to Transport Tycoon and how that works. There are way more, like a whole load more of products that you can provide these things. Now, as a town is small, there'll only be the farmer's market and the hardware store. They're only demanding sort of very simple things that you can make very easily. So like, leather, all you need for leather is to make a livestock farm. To create cows, or if you raise cows, and from those cows you'll just get leather from them. They'll go to your warehouse. You can then tell the warehouse to send them to the hardware store. As the towns start to prosper, as you're providing more stuff for them, they'll start to grow. They actually, the term that they use is level up. So you can level the town up, and you can provide the money to actually level that town up. And if you do, you can put a new store in, and that store is way more advanced. It wants more advanced stuff. So as you start to go through the game, instead of the town, the farmer's market always want apples, but then maybe the grocery store's wanting cider. So in order to create cider, you're going to have to create a factory somewhere. And this is where the game sort of gradually builds up and levels sort of thing, because there's a tech tree that you will be researching things on. And those let you unlock new recipes for new products. But it also does things like you can make things more efficient for you. It can make your warehouses hold more stuff. It can mean that you can have more harvesting buildings for your gathering buildings, if you see what I mean. Yeah. So instead of there only being 3 harvesters, there's 5. So yeah, you just kind of gradually build up, and it's actually I started the game and I played it solo. I didn't play with any AI because I just wanted to learn how the game worked, and it ended up just being this totally relaxing afternoon that I had, where I just sat and watched this little town that I decided to build next to just gradually grow. Built my farming empire around them, watched it expand. Got my first factories in there, started giving them orange juice and making flour, and it was just nice to see these things just appearing in levels, and it wasn't overly stressful or anything. It wasn't like I felt like there was too much stuff to do, oh god, this is breaking down or anything might happen in other games. That sort of stuff just didn't really happen.
Yeah, I can see what you're getting at, sort of soothing.
It's just it's the idea of just creating things, that just makes you feel good, it releases some sort of endorphins. Yeah,
I used to love playing SimCity 2000 and just seeing the little cars appear on the roads as the city started to become a city. People moved into it.
Well, that's it, and that's the thing, because you actually physically watch the city expand in Rise of Industry. You watch the cities expand because the little buildings will just start appearing further out further out in the outskirts of the city, basically. And you can watch the population meter go up for the more stuff you deliver. The city that I built next to it went from a city that started off with 40,000 people to 250,000.
Wow.
And that's just because I was providing stuff to the city.
Just off apples?
Apples, but expanding into a whole load of other things.
Apples and cows.
Apples and cider. Apples for people that want to make their own cider. But no, by the time that the city was that big, I had the city surrounded with stuff. There was sheep farms, and there was wheat farms, and I actually had sand harvesters because I was sending sand to the hardware store. Apparently people want to buy sand. Who knew?
Yeah.
I had factories all over the place, and yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on. And the thing is, I haven't really seen a lot of this game yet. And it's fairly deep. It seems fairly complex, but I only played it solo. So I remember playing Transport Tycoon, and there would be AI players that are also building stuff. And that would get quite stressful because you would see them just sort of suddenly blasting railroads across the map and stuff, and then they're transporting things back and forth. And you're like, oh god, what's going on here? What are they transporting? How come I'm not getting a slice of this? Why did I not spot that? Although one of the things in Transport Tycoon, the AI were idiots. You could actually just have fun in Transport Tycoon, just blocking the building of the AI and watching as they built ridiculously complicated railroad or road systems with bridges and tunnels to try and get past the bits that you'd built in. And you could just keep doing it to them, and that was just amusing in itself. So I'm hoping the AI in Rise of Industry is a bit more clever than that, a bit more intelligent. But yeah, I had fun with this. I want to go and try and start a new game and play with like one or two AI and see how that changes things, because I'll get a feeling it's going to be much less relaxing. It's going to be sort of way more competitive. But I mean, like, the tech tree is impressive. There's definitely a nod to the original Transport Tycoon in the way that the game looks. It's still that isometric thing. You can't rotate it like a 3D game. It only rotates in like 90-degree shifts. And that's, definitely a nod back to Transport Tycoon, because that's the way that game looked. I'm quite impressed by it. There's a lot going on, and I'm looking forward to digging deeper into it.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be interesting playing against the AI to see how the competition works, assuming the AI is any good. Or even just, like, I guess you're trying to, like, not compete with the AI, perhaps. I don't know, it'd be interesting. Like, if the AI is shipping apples, then maybe you want to ship something else. I don't know, you'd have to try it and see.
But I mean, the thing is that this game has like a fluctuating economy. The more stuff that gets provided to something, the less they want it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't just like, here's my Apple empire.
Because
you have to like,
well, if
you create an Apple empire
Apple
eventually.
Empire.
Yeah, if somebody else starts an Apple empire, then it's like, oh well, I'm switching to oranges. But it's that kind of thing. But I mean, it happens kind of almost all of a sudden, because I was only providing enough apples that it was only partially fulfilling what the city wanted. So, like, I could have provided them a lot more apples by building more apple farms, but I was only providing a small amount. So, like you say, like, imagine if everybody's giving us a city of apples, you're going to have to switch strategies at some point. You may even have to end up just completely switching to, farming livestock instead or something like that. And you kind of have to keep up with, I mean, imagine when you're playing with AI players, you're going to have to keep up with what the supply and demand is. And that's probably going to be the most stressful part of the whole thing.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how well it works. I don't know, playing with real people would be even more confusing, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if that's a thing in Rise of Industry. I don't think it is at the moment. I mean, the game was in early access like last year, but I think it is now fully released. So I don't think they're going to make any more major changes to it. But I know that like when it was early access, I read some reviews for it and people were a bit like, there's not much here, but it definitely seems like there's a lot in it now. So I'm quite impressed by it. In terms of just like it being a Transport Tycoon sort of successor kind of thing, it's definitely a sort of modernised version of that, and that was what I was looking for, so there it is.
Oh well, yeah, but you don't get, if you can't build the rails, then...
You can build the rails.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, sorry, I should have said...
Can you...
You're mostly going to be focusing on roads at the beginning of the game, but you can build train stations, you can build boats, and more excitingly, you can build zeppelins. But those are like for exciting. Really long distance travel things. I was only just sort of getting into the long distance travel side of things, where I decided, let's go and see what I can do with this other city. Let's see if I can provide other things to that. But you had to research railway stations, and I hadn't got to that point yet. So before I had to turn the game off, I didn't quite get there. But I mean, it looks quite interesting because you have to like, pay for long distance travel and things. Anytime a train or a truck that will go a long distance, it's going to cost you much more in order to do that.
Yeah, or a zeppelin.
Or a zeppelin.
That's like a premium service to get your... Yeah. I mean, that's like the height of luxury, getting your apples delivered by zeppelin.
I think Morrison's provide that feature. Right, anyway, yes, that is Rise of Industry. That is by Dapper Penguin Studios.
My goodness.
You get some fun names these days, don't you? It's on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. And the full release was quite recent, like the past couple of months, I believe. So it is fairly new in that sense. Right, Dave, well, I think we've got just enough time for you to talk about the other crazy game that you've been playing.
Yeah. Well, I just thought I'd talk a little bit about a game called Baba Is You, which you may have heard of because it's become, over the sort of relatively short period that it's been out for, a wee bit of a sort of meme sensation and all the rest of it, just thanks to its name and the sort of slightly wacky nature of the game. But it is worth checking out. It's a little indie puzzle game. It's a a tile-based block pushing. Well, it's not, but it kind of reminds you of Sokoban. There's definitely occasionally Sokoban elements, but in a good way, because Sokoban's a horrible game. So, you know how you get rocks in NetHack. Did you ever encounter any boulders? Sometimes you just randomly encounter them in a hallway, and you can push them along, and sometimes you can get past them, and sometimes they bump up against something else, and you can't push them any further. And because you also get holes in the floor in NetHack, as Ewan encountered as he fell through a number of them in pits as well. If you ever push a boulder into a hole in the floor or a pit, it plugs it and just becomes a piece of floor. Yeah. So because of that behaviour, at some point somebody realised that you could play Sokoban in NetHack, and there's a number of Sokoban levels that you can find. But they're so polarising, they're like an optional add-in for the game, because some people hate them so much they don't put them in it. Because, it could be a frustrating game. And one of the differences about Baba Is You is, before I even explain what it is, I'll just say it includes an undo feature, which is just the best thing ever. Like every Sokoban game I played, you accidentally push a rock up against the wall, and then you're like, oh, fuck. I have to start again from the beginning. And I don't know why maybe some of them do, but none of the ones I ever played had a simple undo, multi-level undo, like Baba Is You has. So you just tap the Z button and you go back. Because what you do, it's top-down, tile-based, and you are generally this little spider-type sheep thing. It's like a little blob with legs, because it's visually this is a game that, I think it was kind of like a Flash game, but this is a game that could have existed on the Spectrum because of its tile-based nature and very simple graphics. And you'll see yourself, and there'll be a number of other things. There's walls and rocks and flowers and skulls and clouds and water and who knows what else arranged on this sort of puzzle level. You're just on one screen. There's no scrolling or anything like that. And the object of the game is to get your character that you're controlling onto whichever tile is the winning tile.
Yeah.
And the way that's determined, and the thing that's different about this game, is, as well as all these other sprites that you can see in the screen, are some rules. And the rules are on the map with you. They are words that make little three-word sentences, like Baba Is You is one of them. Flag is win is a very common one to see. And that would indicate that you win the game by moving onto the flag tile, moving you, Baba, onto the flag tile. But the thing is, you can push these about, and that's the difference. There's a number of other rules there, and you can rearrange them. And that's what the game is. The game is typically rearranging the objects and the rules such that you can meet the win condition. That's hard to visualize. But that's what it is. I've written some examples. There's the one that people always talk about is there's one where you can see 4 lines of rules, and it says rose is red, violet is blue, flag is win, Baba Is You. But there's no thing is, on that level there's no flag. Right. So you have to push them around a little bit, and quite often there's walls and things, and there'll be a rule somewhere that says wall is block or whatever, I can't remember exactly, that indicates that you can't, or wall is stop, I think it says, and it'll be walled off some walls so that you can't change it. there's often a few permanent rules that are blocked in for you. So that particular one, I think you had to push the blocks around Sokoban, or push the words around Sokoban style, so that basically you would get rose is flag, and then all the roses that were on the screen would turn into flags, and flag is win is still there, and then you just move on to one of the newly appeared roses that's become a flag, and that's how you solve that one. They start out really simple, Another example, there's one that has it just has Baba is you, flag is win, and there is a flag there, but there's a big river of lava across the middle of the screen, and the flag's on the other side of it from you, and there's like Baba is melt and lava is hot, I think, or off somewhere, and you can't change those ones, and there's like a rock, and so the lava will kill you if you go into it. But there's rock is push, because you can't push everything. You can push the words, but the other things you can't push by default. They have to have is push. So what you do in that one, eventually, like the rock is useless, but there's a lava word kicking about that you can push. So you can make lava is push, and then when you move into the lava, instead of falling into it, you just push it along like rocks, like a big stack of rocks. So you just push the lava out the way, and then you can get to the flag.
Clever.
So they start out really simple, but they rapidly get pretty difficult and pretty brain burny. There's just amusing things like the is you. You have to maintain the is you. There always has to be something that is you. It doesn't have to be Baba though. So it's quite amusing to change like what is you. So like it could be like if there's a load of rocks and there's like rock is pushing Baba is you. You could push the rock so that it push the word rock so that it pushes the word Baba out the way from next to Baba is you. So it switches in one move from Baba is you to rock is you. And then all the rocks are your character, and you move them all at the same time using the D-pad, so they all move up, down, left, and right. And
fantastic
in unison. And sometimes that's how you solve some of the puzzles, by having more than one entity on the screen. Sometimes that's a trick. And the game's quite clever in that it has levels that introduce you to tricks like that. So it'll have a simpler one that you use that particular trick, and then you've kind of got that in your memory. Now you know that's a technique that you can use to solve more complex puzzles.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I was saying, you have to. There always has to be something as you, because like that's if you accidentally nudge so that there's nothing as you, then you'll die. Also, like. Because it took me ages to sort of get my head around this as well, because it says Baba is you, and I would be forever changing Baba is like rock, and that doesn't, like making it into Baba is rock, but that doesn't work because nothing is you. It does change you into a rock, but also you're dead. Right, there's nothing is you on this anymore.
Yeah, I can see why that would be confusing. It's the kind of thing I would do.
Yeah, I mean, it gets pretty difficult pretty quickly, but I mean, it's a very original take on the sort of block pushing game genre, which has been around for forever. I do remember games on the Spectrum which were about pushing blocks and sort of weird. Like, I remember one that had fish and grain or something, and like the fish always moved downwards and the grain went left or something, and it was like a sort of cascading block puzzle.
Right, okay,
yeah. So this is a really cool take. It has nice music. It has a sort of cool indie feel. There's like an overworld map that's like the map in Super Mario Bros. 3, where you select the levels that you're going to play. Which is always fun, and it's sort of slightly non-linear. You know, if you're stuck on a level, there's usually other ones that you could go and have a wee look at, and you can be like, I'll maybe come back to this one later and try it again. And then, I'm definitely stuck on a lot of them.
How many levels are there?
I have no idea. A lot. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, like I have no idea because of this map thing. I can't actually see how many areas, because you unlock new areas.
Right. Aye.
Like once you clear a certain number of levels within an area, it gives you like a feather or something. I can't remember, and you get enough feathers, it unlocks a new area that you can go to that has a slightly different theme. You know, like underwater or caves, or and get different music as well. But each area that I've been to has like maybe 12 levels, and then there's challenge levels as well, which are like optional ones that are just really difficult potentially.
Right.
It's a cool game. It's worth checking out if you're into that kind of thing. It's a lot of fun, and it's. I mean, it came out this year in 13th of March 2019. Wiki. no wiki, Google says. And it's on lots of platforms, so you can play it on Switch as well as Windows, Linux, and Mac. So,
excellent.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say it's by a guy rather called RV Tikari, I think it is.
Right.
He's got another game coming out, which annoyingly I don't know the name of. I've forgotten, but I've seen pictures of it. Oh my goodness! I'll see if I can find out what it is. But it looks amazing. It's another sort of indie-ish looking game. But I don't mean like it looks like it's going to be a great game. I mean visually, it looks incredibly distinctive. I have no idea what kind of game it is. I've just seen screenshots and little videos of it in motion. But yeah, good game.
Excellent. I definitely wanted to pick this game up, but I did get the impression that at some point I would get extremely frustrated with it. But it did seem like a fascinating concept.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, are there other games where you can change the rules, like computer games? There must be some.
I think so. I think I don't think that's a particularly new idea, but I don't know if I've seen it in this kind of block pushing context.
Yeah, and there's just so many. It just keeps introducing new things, like is move and is float, and is float I hate in particular because I can't quite figure out exactly how that works. But is move is like a really fun one because if you make something is move, like anything, they just start moving in either up and down or left and right. It depends on, they have a facing. Each tile has a kind of facing.
Right, yeah.
So like you could make like wall is move, and all the walls will start marching across back and forward across the level.
Amazing. Right, anyway, thanks Dave. That does sound like a fun game. But we're going to have to wrap up here, I'm afraid. So we will give out all our internet stuff. If you want to email us, you can do so at firstplayertoken@gmail.com. If you want to check out our website, which there are links to our social media and everything on there, you can go to firstplayertoken.com. Those are FIRST player token. If you want to check out our Twitter, which is where most of our chat is these days, you can go to @1ST player token.
That's once player token.
Thank you very much, Dave. And we are part of the Podnose Network,
the UK's leading entertainment podcast network.
If you want to go to podnose.com, you'll find a network of podcasts there on a variety of topics, which we are happy to be a part of.
Indeed.
So we will be back hopefully next week. Probably going to be another video games episode, I think.
I think it might be. I mean, Pavel's got a big game to talk about.
Pavel's going to be bursting to talk about video games. He's not been here for a while.
Yep.
But anyway, until then, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.